Hello, my dear students. Welcome back to English Mastery Hub. I'm Logan, and today I want to share a story that completely changed my life. Have you ever felt like learning English is just too difficult? Have you ever doubted whether you'll ever speak fluently? If so, you're not alone. I've been there too. At 15 years old, I was struggling. I memorized vocabulary, practiced grammar, and spent hours studying. But when it came time to speak, I froze. My words wouldn't come out naturally. I lacked confidence, and every mistake made me more afraid to try. And then I met a teacher who changed everything. Mr. Brandon didn't just teach English. He taught me how to overcome fear, build confidence, and truly master the language. His lessons helped me break free from hesitation and finally start speaking with ease. Today, I want to share those lessons with you because I know they can help you too. No matter where you are in your English journey, you have the potential to succeed. So, are you ready to unlock your full potential in English? Let's begin. Most teachers start with grammar and vocabulary. They give students long lists of words to memorize. They teach difficult grammar rules. They ask students to repeat sentences many times. This is how I thought English should be learned. But on the first day, Mr. Brandon did something completely different. He did not give us vocabulary lists. He did not start with grammar exercises. He did not ask us to repeat difficult words. Instead, he told us a story. It was a simple story, but it had a big lesson. The story was about a boy from a small village. The boy had a big dream. He wanted to travel the world. He wanted to see new places, meet new people, and learn about different cultures. But there was one problem. He did not know English. At first, he was afraid. He thought, how can I travel if I don't speak English? But then he decided to try. He started learning step by step. He listened to English songs. He watched English movies. He practiced speaking every day, even when he made mistakes. Many times people laughed at his pronunciation. Sometimes he felt embarrassed. Sometimes he wanted to give up. But he did not stop. He kept trying. Slowly, he improved. His words became clearer. His confidence grew. And one day, he finally achieved his dream. He became a successful interpreter. He traveled to many countries. He spoke to people from all over the world. When Mr. Brandon finished the story, the classroom was silent. Everyone was thinking. Then he looked at us and said something powerful. English is not about perfection. It's about communication. If you're afraid of making mistakes, you'll never improve. Those words stayed in my mind. Before that day, I always thought I needed to speak perfectly. I was scared of making mistakes. I worried about grammar rules. I wanted to sound like a native speaker. But Mr. Brandon made me see English in a new way. I realized that mistakes are not bad. Mistakes are part of learning. Every time I made a mistake, I learned something new. Every time I tried to speak, I became better. That one sentence changed the way I looked at learning English forever. After that day, I changed my approach. I started speaking more. I stopped worrying about being perfect. I focused on expressing myself. If I didn't know a word, I tried to explain it in another way. If I made a mistake, I laughed and corrected myself. And something amazing happened. I started improving faster. Before, I was afraid to talk to people in English, but now I felt more comfortable. Before, I hesitated when I wanted to say something, but now I spoke more freely. Before, I was stuck, always thinking about grammar, but now I focused on communication. Mr. Brandon taught me a very important lesson. Don't aim for perfection, aim for communication. If you want to improve your English, don't be afraid of making mistakes. Speak as much as you can. Listen to English every day. Try to think in English. Use the words you know. It doesn't matter if your grammar is not perfect. It doesn't matter if you don't know many words. What matters is that you try. Because every time you speak, you get better. Every time you listen, you understand more. Every time you practice, you grow. Many students wait for the perfect moment to start speaking. They think, I will speak when I know more words, or I will speak when my grammar is better. But the truth is, the perfect moment never comes. If you wait, you will wait forever. The best way to learn English is to start now. Speak, make mistakes, and learn from them. It does not matter if you are shy. It does not matter if you feel nervous. What matters is that you try. The more you try, the better you will become. Think about how babies learn to speak. Do they know grammar rules? Do they use perfect sentences? Number. They just listen and try. They make mistakes, but they keep going. And one day, they speak fluently. You can learn English in the same way. Listen, speak, and practice every day. Do not be afraid of mistakes. Do not wait for the perfect moment. The perfect moment is now. After I changed my mindset, learning English became easier. I stopped feeling nervous. I started enjoying the process. I watched movies without subtitles. I read books in English. I spoke with confidence, even when I made mistakes. And guess what? My English improved faster than ever before. I realized that learning English is not about knowing every word. It is not about speaking perfectly. It is about communicating. It is about expressing yourself. It is about confidence. Now, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been afraid to speak English? Have you ever worried about making mistakes? If the answer is yes, I want you to remember this. You do not need to be perfect. You only need to try. Every mistake you make is a step forward. Every time you speak, you are improving. Every time you practice, you are getting closer to fluency. So do not wait. Start today. Speak, listen, and practice every day. Do not be afraid. Believe in yourself. Because one day, just like the boy in the story, you will achieve your dream. One of the biggest obstacles to speaking English fluently is fear. I know many of you may have experienced it. It's the fear of making mistakes, the fear of sounding silly, and the fear that people will laugh at you or judge you. I felt the same way when I was learning English. I was scared to speak, and I thought if I made a mistake it would be embarrassing. But what I learned is that fear is one of the biggest barriers to learning, and the only way to break through that fear is by speaking. Mr. Brandon, our teacher, had a very simple but effective solution. He told us to speak every single day. At first I thought, how can speaking every day help me? What if I make mistakes every time? But Mr. Brandon didn't want us to focus on being perfect. He wanted us to focus on improving, and for that, we needed to speak. Every morning, when we came to class, Mr. Brandon would ask us to share something about our lives. It didn't matter what we talked about, whether it was our thoughts, our dreams, or even just how we felt that day. The important thing was that we spoke in English. At first, I was terrified. I could feel my heart racing every time it was my turn to speak. My sentences were broken, and my pronunciation was awkward. Sometimes I couldn't find the right words, and I would hesitate for a long time. I was scared that everyone would laugh at me. But you know what? No one laughed. Mr. Brandon never laughed or corrected us in a harsh way. Instead, he always smiled and encouraged us. If we made a mistake, he would say, "It's okay, keep going." This encouragement made all the difference. It helped me to feel that it was okay to make mistakes. I started to realize that making mistakes was not something to be afraid of. It was something to learn from. Then, one day, something incredible happened. I was speaking in front of the class, just like every day. But this time, something felt different. I was telling a short story in English, and I didn't stop. I didn't hesitate or search for the perfect word. I just kept going. It wasn't perfect, but it was a huge breakthrough for me. I spoke without stopping, without worrying too much about making mistakes. And you know what? Everyone listened, and no one laughed. It was a moment of success, and it felt amazing. That moment showed me that fluency doesn't come from avoiding mistakes or waiting until you're perfect. Fluency comes from practice. The more you speak, the better you get. Even if you're scared, even if you make mistakes, the important thing is that you keep speaking. Every time you speak, you get a little bit better. Every time you make a mistake, you learn something new. So my lesson for you is this: don't wait until you feel ready to speak. Don't wait until you feel perfect. Start speaking today. Speak even if you're scared. Speak even if you make mistakes. The more you practice, the more fluent you will become. Fluency doesn't happen overnight. It takes time and effort, but if you speak every day, you will see progress. You will become more confident, and your speaking skills will improve faster than you think. Remember, you don't have to be perfect to speak English. You just need to start. Speak every day, even if it's just for a few minutes. Speak about your day, your thoughts, your dreams, anything that helps you practice. The more you do it, the easier it will become. So don't be afraid of making mistakes. Don't be afraid to sound silly. Don't worry if your sentences are not perfect. The key is to keep speaking, keep practicing, and keep improving. Your fear will fade, and before you know it, speaking in English will feel natural to you. You've got this. Keep going, and don't let fear hold you back. Fluency is waiting for you on the other side of your fear. Many students believe that learning English is all about textbooks and grammar exercises. They think they need to memorize long lists of words and study complex rules every day. But this can feel boring and tiring. It can make learning English feel like a difficult task. I used to feel the same way. I thought the only way to improve was by studying hard, reading difficult grammar books, and doing endless exercises. But one day, Mr. Brandon showed me a different way. He believed that learning English should be fun. He told us that when we enjoy the process, we learn faster. He showed us new and exciting ways to improve our English without feeling bored or frustrated. Here's how he made English fun for us. We started with music. One day, Mr. Brandon walked into the classroom with a big smile. Instead of opening a textbook, he played a song. It was a popular English song with simple lyrics. "Listen carefully," he said. "Try to catch the words." At first it was difficult. The singer was too fast, and I didn't understand many words. But then, Mr. Brandon gave us the lyrics. He played the song again, and we followed along, reading the words as we listened. We repeated the words out loud, just like the singer. We practiced the pronunciation, the rhythm, and the melody. It felt like singing, not studying. After a few days of listening to the same song, something amazing happened. I started remembering the lyrics. I could sing along without looking at the words. I didn't even realize I was learning new vocabulary and improving my pronunciation. From that moment, I started listening to English songs every day. I chose songs I liked, looked up the lyrics, and sang along. It didn't feel like studying, but my English was improving. Another day, Mr. Brandon surprised us again. Instead of a lesson, he turned on a movie. We were excited. Watching a movie in class, it felt like a treat. But Mr. Brandon had a plan. First, he let us watch with English subtitles. He told us to focus on how the actors spoke, their tone, and their expressions. Then, he paused the movie and asked, "Did you hear that phrase? How did they say it?" He made us repeat short sentences just like the actors. We copied their pronunciation, their speed, even their emotions. It felt like playing a game, not a lesson. I started watching English movies at home. At first, I used subtitles in my language, but soon I switched to English subtitles. Then, one day, I tried watching without subtitles. To my surprise, I understood more than I expected. Watching movies helped me learn real, natural English. It taught me how native speakers talk in daily life. It also made learning enjoyable. One day, Mr. Brandon handed me a book. It was The Little Prince. I looked at it and said, "But I don't know all the words." He smiled and said, "You don't need to know every word. Just read and try to understand the meaning." At first, I wanted to stop every time I saw a new word. I wanted to check the dictionary, but Mr. Brandon told me to keep reading. He said, "Don't worry about every word. Just enjoy the story." So, I did. At first, it was hard, but soon, I started understanding the story. Even if I didn't know every word, I could guess the meaning. I didn't feel frustrated anymore. I felt excited. That was the first book I finished in English. After that, I wanted to read more. I started reading short stories, comics, and even simple novels. Reading became fun, not a chore. After using music, movies, and books to learn English, I realized something important. English was no longer just a subject in school. It became part of my daily life. I started listening to English songs while walking. I watched English movies in my free time. I read simple books before bed. It didn't feel like studying anymore. It felt like fun. And because I was enjoying it, I learned faster. If you only use textbooks, learning English can feel difficult. But if you find fun ways to learn, everything becomes easier. Do you love music? Listen to English songs, read the lyrics, and sing along. Do you enjoy movies? Watch them in English, use subtitles, and repeat the lines. Do you like stories? Read simple books, Enjoy the meaning, and don't worry about every word. When you enjoy the process, you will learn faster. You will feel excited, not stressed. And before you know it, you will be speaking and understanding English without fear. So, find what you love and make English fun. Mr. Brandon didn't just teach us English. He pushed us to do things that were difficult. He made us step outside of our comfort zones. At first, I didn't understand why we had to do these things. They felt hard, and I was nervous about trying them. But later, I realized that these challenges were exactly what I needed to become better at English. One of the first things Mr. Brandon did was start Speak Only English days. Every week we had one day when we were not allowed to use our native language. At first, this sounded impossible. How could we talk without using our own language? How could we explain things without the words we knew? But Mr. Brandon explained, "This is the best way to think in English. You won't always have the chance to speak your own language in the real world. You need to learn to think in English." That day, we had to speak only in English. We shared stories about our day, talked about our hobbies, and even discussed simple topics like the weather. It was tough. At times I felt frustrated because I couldn't find the words I needed. I had to ask for help, use simpler words, and sometimes even point to things to explain. But the more we did it, the better I got. I started thinking in English instead of translating from my language. Little by little, speaking English every day became easier. Another challenge Mr. Brandon gave us was journaling in English. Every day we had to write a few sentences in English. It wasn't about writing perfect sentences. It was about practicing. The first time I wrote in my journal, it took forever. I couldn't remember how to write some words, and my sentences were very short and simple. But I didn't give up. I kept writing, even if it wasn't perfect. I wrote about how I felt, things I did during the day, and what I wanted to learn next. At first, it felt strange to write in English. I wasn't used to it, and I was nervous that I would make mistakes. But Mr. Brandon always told us, mistakes are okay. The more you practice, the better you will become. By the end of the week, I felt more comfortable writing in English. I could express myself better and organize my thoughts. Writing in English helped me improve my vocabulary and grammar. The third challenge we did was called shadowing exercises. Mr. Brandon played audio clips of native English speakers talking, and our job was to repeat exactly what they said. We had to copy their words, their pronunciation, and even their rhythm. It felt a little silly at first. I had to listen carefully, and sometimes I couldn't keep up. But as I practiced, I began to notice that my pronunciation got better. My rhythm improved too. I sounded more like a native speaker. Shadowing helped me understand how native speakers talk in real life. I could hear the natural flow of the language and how they connected words together. It wasn't just about learning new words. It was about learning how to speak like a native speaker. At first, all these challenges felt impossible. I didn't think I could do it. I thought I was too slow or too shy to speak only in English. I didn't believe I could write in a new language or repeat sentences correctly. But over time, I got better. Every time I did these activities, I learned something new. The more I pushed myself, the more confident I became. It wasn't always easy, but I saw progress. These challenges helped me improve my English faster than I ever thought possible. They pushed me to step out of my comfort zone and take risks. I stopped being afraid of making mistakes, and I started enjoying the process of learning. So, what can you learn from this? Challenge yourself. The more you push yourself, the faster you'll improve. Don't wait for everything to feel easy or comfortable. Sometimes the hardest tasks are the ones that help you grow the most. If you always stay in your comfort zone, it's harder to improve. But if you try new things, even if they feel difficult, you will get better. Start small. Try speaking only in English for 5 minutes each day. Write a few sentences in English every night. Listen to native speakers and try shadowing their words. The more you practice, the better you will get. Remember, the best way to improve is to challenge yourself. It won't always be easy, but you will be amazed at how much you can learn. Keep pushing yourself, and your English will improve faster than you think. One day, Mr. Brandon announced something that made me feel like I was going to faint. He said, "We're going to have a speaking competition next week. You will prepare a speech and present it in front of the whole class." I felt my stomach drop. A speech? In front of everyone? My fear started to grow bigger and bigger. I couldn't imagine speaking in front of so many people. How could I stand there and speak? My hands were already shaking just thinking about it. I looked around at my classmates. Some of them seemed confident, but I felt like I was the only one who was scared. I thought, there's no way I can do this. I'm not good enough to speak in front of everyone. But then Mr. Brandon looked at me. He saw the fear in my eyes and said, "You're ready. Believe in yourself." Those words stuck with me. You're ready. But I didn't feel ready at all. I felt nervous, scared, and completely unprepared. However, I didn't want to disappoint him, so I decided to try. I spent the next few days practicing my speech. I would wake up early and say my speech out loud in front of the mirror. I repeated the words over and over until I felt like I knew the speech by heart. Every time I practiced, I still felt nervous. My hands would shake, and my voice would quiver. But I kept going. The night before the speech, I could hardly sleep. My mind kept going over the words of my speech. What if I forget what I'm supposed to say? What if I mess up in front of everyone? I was worried that I wouldn't be able to do it, but I knew I couldn't back out now. The next morning, I walked into the classroom with my heart pounding. My hands were sweaty, and my mind was racing. Mr. Brandon called my name, and I walked to the front of the class. I stood there, holding my notes, trying to calm my nerves. My heart was beating so loudly, I thought everyone could hear it. I took a deep breath and started speaking. At first, my voice shook. The words felt strange in my mouth, and I thought I might forget what to say. I wanted to stop, but I remembered Mr. Brandon's words. "You're ready." So I kept going. Slowly, my fear started to fade. As I spoke more, I began to feel a little better. The shaking stopped, and my voice became stronger. I looked at my classmates and saw that they were listening, not laughing or judging. When I finally finished, I looked around, and to my surprise, everyone was clapping. I couldn't believe it. They were clapping for me. Mr. Brandon smiled and said, "That is progress." His words made me feel so proud of myself. At that moment, I realized something important. My fear had been holding me back. I had been afraid to speak in front of people, but once I faced that fear, I saw that I could do it. The more I practiced, the more confident I became. The fear didn't control me anymore. I learned that the biggest barrier to my progress was fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of speaking in front of others, and fear of being judged. But by pushing through that fear, I was able to grow. This moment changed everything for me. I learned that facing my fears was the key to becoming better at English and in life. When I stopped worrying about what others thought and focused on doing my best, I became stronger and more confident. If you're afraid of speaking, I want you to know something important. The only way to overcome that fear is to face it. You cannot wait for the fear to go away on its own. You have to speak, even when you're nervous. The more you do it, the easier it gets. Remember that every time you speak, you are improving. Even if it feels scary, you are growing. Keep practicing, keep facing your fears, and you will get better. So, if you're scared to speak in English, take a deep breath and do it anyway. Speak, even when you feel nervous. You will be surprised at how much progress you can make by simply pushing through your fear. Years later, as I look back, I realize how much Mr. Brandon shaped my journey. He was more than just a teacher. He was the one who pushed me, encouraged me, and taught me that learning English was not just about memorizing words or perfect grammar. It was about believing in myself and never giving up. Because of Mr. Brandon, I never gave up on learning English. I kept practicing, kept speaking, and today, English feels natural to me. I can have conversations with native speakers now, something I once thought was impossible. I can watch movies without subtitles and still understand what's happening. I can write in English without struggling to find the right words, but more importantly, Mr. Brandon didn't just teach me English, he taught me confidence. He taught me perseverance, and most importantly, he taught me the power of believing in myself. Now, I want to share that lesson with you. You don't have to be perfect. You don't need to wait until you feel ready. You just have to start, speak, make mistakes, and learn from them. Here's what I want you to remember. Stop worrying about being perfect. Just start speaking. You don't have to say everything correctly, and you don't have to be afraid of making mistakes. Speak even if it's not perfect. The more you speak, the better you will become. Make English learning fun. Watch movies, listen to music, read books, do things that make you enjoy learning. When you enjoy something, it's easier to keep going. Challenge yourself. Step out of your comfort zone. Do things that feel difficult or scary. That's when you learn the most. And most importantly, believe in yourself. If I could do it, you can too. Don't let fear stop you from achieving your dreams. Learning English is not easy, but it is possible. You have everything you need to succeed. Keep practicing, keep challenging yourself, and keep believing in yourself. You will see progress, and one day, English will feel natural to you too. Thank you for being part of this journey with me. Remember, learning English is a journey, not a race. Stay motivated, keep practicing, and I'll see you in the next lesson. Final message: keep learning, keep growing. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to English Mastery Hub. Your support helps us create more content for English learners like you. Learning English can be tough, but with persistence, practice, and a positive mindset, you can do it. Keep going, and remember, I believe in you. See you next time.